The Beginner's Bible, the Old Testament. The beginning, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, the world was empty. Darkness was everywhere, but God had a plan. God separated the light from the darkness. Let there be light, he said, and the light turned on. He called the light day, and he called the darkness night. This was the end of the very first day. Then God said, I will divide the waters. He separated the waters in the clouds above from the waters in the ocean below. He called the space between them sky. This was the end of the second day. Next, God rolled back the waters, and some dry ground appeared. He made plants of many shapes and colors. He made mountains, hills, and valleys. This was the end of the third day. God put a shining sun in the sky for daytime. He put a glowing moon and twinkling stars in the sky for nighttime. This was the end of the fourth day. On the fifth day, God made swishy fish and squiggly creatures to live in the ocean. Then God made birds to fly across the sky. On the sixth day, God made animals to creep, crawl, hop, and gallop. Then from the dust, God made the most wonderful creature of all, a person. God named him Adam. On the seventh day, God rested. Adam and Eve, Genesis chapter 2. God had planted a beautiful garden for Adam in a place called Eden. A river flowed through the garden. Adam loved his new home. His job was to name all the animals and care for the garden. Adam loved all the animals, but he could not find a friend that was just right for him. So God created a woman. Adam named her Eve. She was just right for Adam. Adam and Eve loved each other. Together, they took care of God's garden. The sneaky snake, Genesis chapter 3. Many trees grew in the Garden of Eden. God told Adam and Eve, You may eat the fruit from any tree except for one. Never eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now there was a sneaky snake in the garden. One day, the snake saw Eve near the special tree. It hissed, Did God really tell you not to eat the fruit from this tree? The snake wanted Eve to disobey God. It said, You should try some of this tasty fruit. If you eat it, you will be like God. You will be able to tell the difference between good and evil. The fruit looked tasty. Eve remembered what God had said, but she ate the fruit anyway. Then Eve gave some to Adam, and he took a bite too. As the sun was going down, Adam and Eve heard God walking through the garden. He was looking for them. Adam and Eve hid among the trees. They were afraid. What have you done? God asked. Did you eat the fruit from the forbidden tree? Adam said, Yes, but Eve gave it to me. And Eve said, Oh, yes, but the snake tricked me. God told the snake, Because of what you did, you will always crawl on your belly. Then he told Adam and Eve, Because you disobeyed me, you can no longer live in the garden. Adam and Eve left the garden. God placed angels and a flaming sword to guard the entrance. Adam and Eve would not be allowed in the garden again. Noah's Ark, Genesis chapter 6 through 9. After Adam and Eve left the garden, many people were born. The people kept doing bad things and they forgot about God. Except Noah. Noah loved God. God was sad that everyone but Noah forgot about him. He told Noah about his plan to start over. Make yourself an ark, God said. Here is how. So Noah and his family began working on the ark. When it was done, God said, Take your family and 2 of every animal into the ark. Animals creeped, crawled, hopped, and galloped onto Noah's new boat. After everyone was inside, the rain began to fall, and fall, and fall. The ark rocked this way and that way on the rising water. Finally, the rain stopped. Water covered everything. Everyone inside the ark was safe. Noah and his family were very happy. One day, Noah sent a dove to find land. It flew and flew, but never found any. So it came back. 1 week later, Noah sent the dove out again, but this time it brought him an olive leaf. Noah cheered. It must have found land. The ark finally came to rest on the top of a mountain. God told Noah to leave the ark. Noah and his family praised God. God put a beautiful rainbow in the sky. It was a sign of his promise to never flood the whole earth again. The Tall Tower, Genesis chapter 11. After the flood, everyone spoke the same language. One word meant hello, one word meant mom, and one word meant dad. The people said, if we work together, we can do anything. Let's build a tower that goes all the way up to heaven. Then everyone will see how great we are. The people worked hard on their tower. They built it taller and taller. They began to brag. God did not like the way they were acting. It was as if they no longer needed him. So God mixed up their language. When they tried to talk to each other, it sounded like babble. Everyone was confused. Then God scattered the people all over the earth. They had to stop building their tower. From then on, the tower was called Babel. A new home, Genesis chapters 12 through 17. Abraham loved God. So did his wife Sarah. One day, God told Abraham to move to a new land. So along with their helpers, Abraham and Sarah packed up and went. Abraham's nephew was Lot. Lot and all his helpers went with them too. The helpers began to fight. There was not enough grass for all the animals. So Abraham said to Lot, "You pick your own land to live on." Lot chose the best land. It had the most green grass and the most water for his animals. Lot moved to his new home. Then God gave Abraham a blessing. God said, "All the land you see here will be yours forever. Also, you and Sarah will be blessed with many children." God led Abraham and Sarah to a place called Hebron. It was beautiful. The visitors, Genesis chapters 18 and 21. One hot day, Abraham was resting near his tent. He heard footsteps. 3 men were standing nearby. Abraham went out to greet them. "Would you like to rest in the shade? We have plenty of cool water to drink. Can I get you something to eat?" Abraham told Sarah about the visitors. He asked her to make a tasty meal. While they were eating, the 3 visitors shared some exciting news. They said, "Your wife is going to have a son." Sarah heard what they said. She laughed, thinking, "I am too old." God asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Anything is possible with the Lord." Sure enough, the next year, Sarah had a baby boy. They named him Isaac. A bride for Isaac, Genesis chapters 24 through 25. When Isaac grew up, his father Abraham wanted him to get married. Abraham told one of his servants, "Go to my homeland. There you will find the perfect bride for Isaac." So Abraham sent the servant on his way with 10 camels and a lot of jewelry and clothes. They were gifts for Isaac's new bride. The servant reached Abraham's homeland. He stopped by a well and prayed, "Dear God, please show me the woman you have chosen for Isaac. I will know she is the one if she offers water to me and my camels." Before he finished praying, a young woman with a jar walked toward the well. After she filled her jar, the servant asked her for a drink. She gave him a drink. Then she gave water to his camels. She was the answer to his prayer. Her name was Rebekah. The servant gave her the gifts, and they went to meet her father. The servant asked for his permission to take Rebekah to Isaac. Rebekah told the servant she would be happy to go. When Isaac saw Rebekah, he fell in love with her. Soon they got married. Isaac and Rebekah had twin boys named Esau and Jacob. Isaac's blessing, Genesis chapter 27. When Isaac was an old man, he could not see very well. He called for his firstborn son, Esau. "Bring me my favorite dinner, then I will give you God's blessing." "I will make a special meal for you," said Esau. Then he hunted for some meat to cook. Isaac's wife Rebekah wanted Jacob to get God's blessing. So while Esau was hunting, she told Jacob her plan. She made Isaac dinner, then she tied goat skins around Jacob's arms. Jacob took the meal to his father. After dinner, Isaac reached out to bless his son. Isaac thought Jacob was Esau, so he gave Jacob his blessing. When Esau returned, he found out what had happened. Esau was very angry. He wanted to hurt Jacob. Rebekah asked Isaac to send Jacob to his uncle Laban's house. Jacob's dream, Genesis chapter 28. Jacob traveled for many miles. His uncle Laban lived far away. One night he lay on the ground using a stone for his pillow. Jacob fell fast asleep. Jacob dreamed of a stairway to heaven. Angels walked up and down. God said, "I am watching over you, Jacob. Someday all of this land will belong to you and your family." The next morning when Jacob woke up, he said, "The Lord is in this place." He took his stone pillow and set it up as a reminder of his dream. Jacob praised God. Then he continued on his way. Jacob and Esau meet again. Genesis chapter 29. While Jacob lived with his uncle Laban, he became a shepherd. He fell in love and got married. God blessed Jacob with many sons. Jacob also had many sheep, donkeys, and camels. One day, God told Jacob to go back to his homeland. Jacob wanted to go back, but he was afraid of his brother Esau. He thought Esau would still be angry with him. But Jacob obeyed God. He and his family packed up everything they owned. Jacob sent servants ahead to offer gifts to Esau. Much to Jacob's surprise, Esau ran to meet him, and he gave Jacob a big hug. They were so happy to see each other again. Joseph's colorful robe, Genesis chapter 37. Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons. Jacob loved him more than all of his other sons. Jacob made Joseph a colorful robe. His brothers were jealous. They wanted nice robes too, and they wanted to be loved as much as Jacob was loved. Joseph had a dream. He told his family, "We were bundling grain from the field. Your bundles of grain bowed down to mine." Then Joseph had another dream. He said, "This time, the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." His father asked, "Does this mean our family will bow down to you someday?" The brothers were even more angry. They threw Joseph into a dry well. Along came some traders. The brothers sold Joseph to them as slaves. They lied to their father and said Joseph had been killed by a wild animal, but God was with Joseph. Pharaoh's dream, Genesis chapters 39 through 41. The traders took Joseph to Egypt. He was thrown into jail, but he did nothing wrong. Joseph trusted God to help him. He made friends with some of the prisoners. One of them had been a wine taster for Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the leader of Egypt. The wine taster said, "Last night I had a dream. I was picking grapes and squeezing them into Pharaoh's cup. Then I put the cup in his hand. What does this mean, Joseph?" Joseph answered, You will be Pharaoh's wine taster again. Once you are free, please don't forget about me. Help me get out of jail too." A few days later, the wine taster's dream came true. He got out of jail and became Pharaoh's wine taster once again. But he forgot about Joseph. Later, Pharaoh had 2 strange dreams. In one dream, he saw 7 heavy cows and 7 skinny cows. The skinny cows ate up all the heavy cows. In another dream, Pharaoh saw 7 healthy plants. Then he saw 7 dried up plants. The dried up plants ate all the healthy plants. Pharaoh was confused. Pharaoh's wise men were confused too. Then the wine taster remembered Joseph. He told Pharaoh that Joseph could explain his dreams. With God's help, Joseph told Pharaoh what his dreams meant. For the next 7 years, plenty of food will grow. For 7 years after that, not enough food will grow because there will be no rain. Pharaoh said, "Joseph, you are a very wise man. I will make you a ruler over Egypt." Joseph saves his family. Genesis 42 through 46. For the first 7 years, Joseph was in charge of gathering extra food for the people of Egypt. That way, when hardly any crops grew, there would still be plenty to eat. The 7 bad years began, and people in other countries had no food at all. Even Joseph's family did not have enough to eat. So Joseph's father sent his sons to Egypt to buy some food. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they went to Joseph and bowed down to him. They did not know he was their brother, but Joseph knew. Joseph sold them some food. Then the brothers left to go home. Sometime later, they returned to buy more food. Just as Joseph had dreamed, they bowed down to him again. Finally, Joseph told them, "I am your brother." His brothers were afraid. But Joseph told them not to be afraid. God meant it for good. He had a special plan for me, he said. They all hugged. Joseph's brothers rushed home. They told their father what had happened. Jacob was so happy to hear that Joseph was alive. The whole family moved to Egypt. A baby in a basket. Exodus chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 10. Many years passed. A new Pharaoh ruled over Egypt. He did not know about the good things Joseph had done. By now, there were many people in Jacob's family. They were called Israelites. Pharaoh did not like the Israelites. He made them work hard. One day, Pharaoh decided to get rid of all the Israelite baby boys. A woman named Jacquelyn had a baby boy. She wanted to save him. So she gently laid her baby inside a basket and placed him in the river. The baby started to cry. Pharaoh's daughter saw the basket and opened it. She gently picked up the baby and hugged him. "I want to keep you," the princess whispered. She named him Moses because she pulled him out of the water. Miriam, the baby's big sister, had been watching nearby. She said to the princess, "I know a woman who can help you take care of the baby." So Miriam ran to get her mother. Jochebed was so happy. When Moses was a young boy, Jochebed returned him to the princess. He grew up in the palace. The burning bush. Exodus chapter 3. When Moses was a man, he left the palace. Pharaoh was still being mean to the Israelites. Moses tried to protect them. So Pharaoh tried to kill Moses. Moses escaped from Egypt. He went to a place called Midian and became a shepherd. One day while Moses was watching his sheep, he saw something strange. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. From inside the bush, God spoke, "Moses, bring my people out of Egypt. Take them to a new land that I will show you. This new land is called Canaan." Moses was worried that Pharaoh would not listen. God told Moses to throw his staff on the ground. When Moses did, the staff became a snake. God told Moses to reach down and grab the snake. It became a staff again. God said, I will use signs like this to show Pharaoh I have sent you. But I cannot speak very well, complained Moses. God said, do not worry. Your brother Aaron is a good speaker. I will send him with you. So Moses returned with Aaron to Egypt. When they arrived, Moses told the Israelites what God had said. 10 plagues, Genesis chapters 7 through 12. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh's palace. They said, you must let the Israelites go free. If you do not, God will punish you. Pharaoh said, no, I do not know your God. Then he made the Israelites work even harder. God was not pleased, so he changed the main river to blood. Pharaoh did not care. I will never let the Israelites go, he said. Then God sent frogs to Egypt. They were sitting in chairs, hopping up stairs, and jumping all over the beds. Pharaoh said, take the frogs away, and I will let your people go. So God took the frogs away. But Pharaoh changed his mind and said no. God sent more plagues on Egypt. First were the pesky gnats. Then came a frenzy of flies. Next, all the animals got sick. Then the Egyptian skin broke out in sores. Damaging hailstorms came, and then swarms of locusts ate the crops. Then darkness covered everything. Sometimes Pharaoh said he would let the people go, but after God took away each plague, Pharaoh changed his mind and said no. Moses had one last message from God for Pharaoh. If you do not let my people go, the firstborn son in each Egyptian family will die. Pharaoh refused to listen, so God kept his promise. Pharaoh finally said, go now. The Red Sea, Exodus chapter 14. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. During the day, God went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud. During the night, God went ahead of them in a pillar of fire. God led the Israelites to the edge of the Red Sea. Pharaoh and his army were close behind. The Israelites did not know what to do. They screamed, we are trapped! What have you done to us, Moses? Moses said, do not be afraid. God will protect us. God's cloud came between the Israelites and Pharaoh's army. They could not see anything. God told Moses, raise your staff over the sea. Then the Lord pushed back the sea to make a path. Moses and the Israelites followed the path through the sea and to the other side. But Pharaoh's army followed close behind. Moses raised his staff again, and the sea swept away Pharaoh and his army. Moses and all the Israelites sang praises to God. They were free. They weren't slaves anymore. Food from heaven, Exodus chapter 16. The Israelites traveled for many days. They were tired and hungry. They complained to Moses, there is nothing to eat in the desert. At least we had food in Egypt. Now we are starving. God heard them. That evening, God sent birds called quail for the Israelites to eat. The next morning, God sent bread from heaven. It was called manna and tasted like honey. The Israelites found the manna on the ground, but they complained again. We are thirsty. Moses asked God what to do. God said, hit the rock with your staff. When Moses hit it, cool, fresh water gushed out for everyone to drink. While they were in the desert, the Israelites would not go hungry or thirsty again. 10 Commandments, Exodus chapters 19 and 20. God led the Israelites to a mountain. Thunder roared and lightning flashed. The people heard a loud trumpet blast. Then God called Moses to the top of the mountain and said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. God wrote the 10 Commandments on 2 stone tablets for all his people to obey. Number 1, God is the only true God. 2, never make idols. 3, never misuse the Lord's name. 4, rest on the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 5, honor your father and your mother. 6, do not murder. 7, husbands and wives must not commit adultery. 8, do not steal. 9, do not tell lies. 10, never want what belongs to others. The Israelites needed a place to worship. God showed them exactly how to build a special tent. It was called a tabernacle. God placed a cloud over the tent. Whenever the cloud moved, the Israelites packed up and followed it. 12 spies. Numbers chapter 13. Finally, the Israelites arrived near the promised land. God told Moses to send spies there. Moses picked 12 men. He told them, "Find out what the people are like. See if the land is good." The spies returned and said, "The land is beautiful. It is filled with plenty of food, but the people there are big and strong." Joshua and Caleb said, "Do not worry. God has promised us this land. He will give it to us." The rest of the Israelites did not agree with Joshua and Caleb. Then God said to Moses, "The people do not have faith in me. They cannot enter the land." So for the next 40 years, God's people wandered in the desert. Joshua and the spies. Joshua chapter 2. After Moses died, Joshua became the leader of the Israelites. God led them into the promised land. He led them to a city called Jericho. The city was protected by high walls. Still, 2 spies found a way into the city. They went to Rahab's house. The king of Jericho ordered his soldiers to capture the men. Rahab hid the men on her roof. When the soldiers arrived, she said, "The spies have already gone. If you hurry, you may catch them." So the soldiers ran off to find them. "Thank you for helping us," the spies told her. "When we come back, we promise to save you and your family." Then Rahab helped the spies escape. The Battle of Jericho, Joshua chapter 6. After the spies were safely home, God told Joshua, "March your army around Jericho with the priests blowing their horns. Do this once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, have your army march around the city 7 times. Joshua did exactly as God said. The priests blew their trumpets. The soldiers shouted as loud as they could. Then the great walls of Jericho came tumbling down. The Israelite army rushed in and took over the city. The spies kept their promise to Rahab, and her whole family was saved. Deborah leads the way. Judges chapter 4. The Israelites lived in the promised land for many years, but they forgot about God. A bad king from another land ruled over them. The Israelites asked God for help. God sent them a judge named Deborah. She loved God very much. God gave her a plan to defeat the bad king. She sent for a man named Barak and told him, "God wants you to take 10,000 soldiers and wait on the hill." The Israelites were not as strong as their enemies. Barak begged Deborah to go with them. She was a strong leader. She agreed. When the Israelites met face to face with the king's army, Deborah exclaimed, "Go, attack them now! God is with us!" The Israelites obeyed and won the battle. Gideon's battle, Judges chapter 6 and 7. God's people kept disobeying his rules, so God allowed their enemy to take all their food away. Again, the Israelites turned to God for help. Again, God answered their prayers. God chose a man named Gideon to help his people. God sent an angel to Gideon. "You are a mighty warrior," said the angel. "You will save God's people." Gideon said, "But I'm from a family that isn't rich or important." Then Gideon prayed to God, "I need a sign from you. I will put some wool on the floor. Tomorrow, if the wool is wet and the ground is dry, I will believe you." The next morning, the wool was wet and the ground was dry. But Gideon wanted another sign. He said to God, "Now, if the wool is dry and the ground is wet, I will be sure you have chosen me." The next morning, God made the wool dry and the ground wet. Now Gideon was sure. He said, "God, I will do whatever you say." Over 30,000 men wanted to join Gideon's army. "That is too many," God said. He showed Gideon how to win with only 300 men. The plan sounded strange, but Gideon trusted God. During the night, Gideon and his men surrounded the enemy camp. They blew trumpets and smashed clay jars. They waved burning torches in the air. Their enemies were frightened. "This must be a huge army," they thought. So they ran away, and God's people won. Samson, Judges 13 and 16. The Israelites were in trouble again. Along came a very strong man named Samson. God had chosen him to save the Israelites from their enemies, the Philistines. Samson knew that as long as he did not cut his hair, he would always be very strong. Samson was in love with Delilah. The Philistines told Delilah they would pay her if she found out what made Samson so strong. At first, Samson lied to her. "If you tie me up with ropes," Samson said, "I will lose my strength." That night, while Samson slept, Delilah tied him up. Then she shouted, "The Philistines are coming!" Samson jumped up and broke the ropes. Delilah kissed him and asked, "Won't you tell me your secret?" Samson gave in and told her, "My strength is in my long hair." When Samson was asleep, Delilah had all his hair cut off. Samson's strength was gone. The Philistines grabbed him and put him in jail. A while later, the Philistines were having a big party. They brought Samson in and made fun of him. Samson prayed to God to make him strong one last time. God did. Samson pushed the pillars with all his might, and the temple came crashing down, and Samson defeated the Philistines. Ruth and Naomi. Ruth chapters 1 through 4. Naomi grew up in the promised land, which was also called Israel. But now she lived far away. She had a husband and 2 sons. Ruth was married to one of the sons. Then something sad happened. Naomi's husband and sons died. Not long after that, Naomi decided to go back to her homeland. Naomi told Ruth to return to her parents, but Ruth did not want to leave her. She loved Naomi so much. "I will go wherever you go," Ruth said. "Your home will be my home. Your God will be my God." So Ruth went with Naomi to Israel. They needed food to eat, so each day Ruth gathered leftover grain from the fields. A good man named Boaz owned the land. One day he saw Ruth in the field. He wanted to help her, so he left extra grain for Ruth to gather. Boaz fell in love with Ruth. They got married and had a baby boy named Obed. God blessed Ruth and Grandma Naomi with a brand new family.